Thank you. I will say good evening and welcome again to all our guests and members to this council meeting on Wednesday, the 21st of February, in case anyone missed that at home. Right. Do we have any apologies for absence, please?
I've received apologies from councillors Birch, Bailey, Fredericks, Patterson, Housden and Spagnola.
Thank you. Before we move into the agenda, I have another sad duty to perform, I'm afraid. It is my sad duty to report to you the passing of former district and county councillor Peter Moore, who was a member of this council for many years. But before Peter worked here at NNDC as a planning officer and also served as a union rep for Nalgo, which went on to become Unison as we know it today. Perhaps one of his greatest achievements as an officer was his involvement in the drawing up of our precious AONB. I think we should all be grateful to him for his involvement and sterling work in helping to protect our beautiful landscape. He became an elected member in 2003 and served continually until May 2019. He also served as a county councillor. He and his wife Anne gave many years' service to this council and the people of North Norfolk and North Walsham in particular, and were extremely welcoming to me when I became a member of this council. He was chairman of the council for a short period of 6 months, taking over when the previous chairman sadly became unwell. He also served as a cabinet member and committee chairman. He was a generous member who spent much time sharing his vast knowledge and expertise with new members and members of the planning committee. He was a compassionate member who worked hard on many issues for families in and around North Walsham. He was extremely passionate about the area he represented and was still on the council when the Market Town Initiative was launched. I'm sure he was delighted to see how that project grew and delivered for North Walsham. In his earlier years, I'm told he made a habit of playing tennis on a Friday lunchtime at the Cromer Tennis and Squash Club. And he was also an accomplished musician and trumpet player with a mischievous sense of humour. Sadly, later in life, ill health plagued him, and Peter has been unwell with dementia for a long time. I was very sorry to hear of his passing. I remember the time I served on this council with him fondly. Could I ask members to please stand and observe a minute's silence? Thank you. Peter's funeral, for anyone that is interested, is tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock at Felmingham Church. Thank you. Right, can we move then to the minutes, please? Does anyone have any points that they wish to raise from the minutes of the last meeting? No? Do I have a proposer then for the minutes, please? Councillor Shires, and a seconder, Councillor Toy. Thank you very much. Can I have a vote? All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? And abstentions, please. Thank you. Do we have any declarations of interest from members, please? No, thank you very much. Items of urgent business. I'm not aware of any items of urgent business. So we move to the chairman's communication. So, January the 25th saw the visit by Her Royal Highness the Princess of Wales, Princess Royal rather, to the National Coast Watch station in Cromer, and then afterwards to reception at the Cliftonville to mark 30 years of their continual service. It was lovely. She spent so much time with all the different members of the respective watches that were there, and was really genuinely interested, and they were really shocked at how knowledgeable she was about the work that they do and the service they provide to our residents. So it was a lovely event, and it was a very great pleasure to meet her on behalf of the council. Holocaust Memorial Day service at St Peter Mancroft in Norwich. I think that speaks for itself. There's an awful lot that could be said with that, with everything that's going on in the world at the moment, but I think we will leave that. And then the opening of King's Lynn Mart, which was probably the most bizarre event I've been to as chairman of this council so far. It was a fantastic event, but full of pomp and ceremony. I've never seen so many mayors, lord mayors, chairmen of councils all turn out for one event. They came from far and wide. They came from Cambridgeshire and Peterborough to be there. The maces and the swords of King's Lynn and the City of Norwich were in the procession. There were an awful lot of people paraded through the town, and because there was so much bling, shall we say, on the show, we had to have extra security to guard us as we went through the town. But it was the 818th Mart. Some of you will know how unwell Pierre was at the beginning of my consort at the beginning of this month of January. And that picture for me was a picture I never thought I'd get. And yeah, it means a lot to me that the showman there and the people who work at King's Lynn made that possible. So I would send a huge thank you to them. Okay. Thank you very much. We move to leaders' announcements. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I wish to simply thank officers, councillors for their contribution to the production of our budget this evening. Lots of individual meetings, the Overview Scrutiny Committee, the Cabinet meetings, etc. And of course, those of you in the room have been giving this a great deal of thought in your private time as well. So we really appreciate that, and thank you from us on the Cabinet to everyone here. Secondly, I just wanted to thank a number of officers in the council for, I think, some landmark achievements in the intervening period since the last meeting. So you recall we've seen a fantastic announcement with bank hubs. So it's very likely Holt may well be the first bank hub in Norfolk, and I'm very pleased. I'm very proud, really, that our corporate data analysis was able to contribute to that work through the provision of data, which I think tipped the dial and enabled us to receive that designation. And it's very good for Holt as well in the future as we see this transition away from high street banking branches to a hub for all of the banking services in one place. Also wanted to remark on the fantastic achievement of the Coastwise drop-in events, which I think have been a real success, and many interesting conversations, useful conversations really for our work in the future. On that initiative, of course, we're just one of two areas of the country that gratefully received that funding, ourselves and East Riding. And also in respect of our empty homes and income generation officer, I understand the annual increase of £100,000 through bringing properties back into use has been achieved, and working through obligations in terms of rates, etc., and including bringing to long-term empty properties back into use. I believe 10 years empty, and changes to the classifications of over 100 properties. So, that was a decision we talked about some time ago as a full council, but you can see it's clearly paying for itself and demonstrating the value of that work in spades. It is actually very shortly the 50th anniversary of this council and district councils in England. And of course, we're at a point in time where the sector as a whole is seeing some of the most significant challenges ever, certainly in a generation, certainly since possibly the inflation crisis of the early 90s, perhaps longer than that. And we now see, of course, the impacts of the housing crisis. Of course, we've had an inflation crisis again. And, I think it's been heartening to a certain extent to see the sector come together through the district council network, the LGA, and achieving common positions on so many things. My deputy Wendy and I have been along to summits on housing together. But I think we all hope as we approach the general election, whatever the outcome there, that the relationship between local and national government can be reset to meet the needs of the future. As we can provide so much in terms of service delivery, which the government cannot do, and housing and economic growth. And that's not just ourselves as North Norfolk District Council, that's our neighbouring authorities, Broadland, Breckland, South Norfolk, etc., and of course the County Council. So there's clearly, as we meet this special birthday, it's not something I presume there'll be many street parades to celebrate 50 years of North Norfolk District Council or any other district councils, of course, but fantastic achievements in that time through the retention of so many of the assets that were adopted from the urban and rural district councils before us, and the local boards and other predecessor authorities, assets such as Cromer Pier, our sea defences in Cromer, Sheringham, and Sheringham Little Theatre, etc., that we've retained and improved and have kept going. But of course, we've got so many challenges now to see, and I'm glad that we as a sector can in some ways do that together. So just wanted to remark on that, really, because it's probably not something that everyone might have been aware of. But thank you again.
Thank you, Councillor. We have two public speakers this evening. Could I ask, please, Mrs. Susan Parry to come up first? Thank you. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Susan Parry. I'm a resident of Fakenham and I own a rental property in Newman's Court, and it's in that capacity that I address you now. On the boarding in front of a seriously dilapidated property at number 9 Norwich Street, it says, North Norfolk District Council working for Fakenham. Whilst I would never condone the application of graffiti, there is an enormous temptation to put an is at the beginning and a question mark at the end. So why do I say that? And am I being unfair? Well, just listen to this timeline. In September 2019, this already dilapidated property developed a very serious crack across the front of the building. October 21, so it's nearly 2 years later, North Norfolk District Council served an urgent works notice. May 22, nearly 3 years after the appearance of the crack, full-height scaffolding was erected. In early 23, a wrap was put around the scaffolding, pictures of old Fakenham were added to the boarding, plus those words, North Norfolk District Council working for Fakenham. In the last quarter of 2023, North Norfolk District Council said it would make a decision on the way forward by the end of the year. My more cynical friends pointed out that the District Council did not say which year. However, I remained optimistic that the Council would honour that statement, but upon inquiry, I am afraid to say that my cynical friends appeared to be right. Whilst this carbuncle in the very heart of Fakenham town centre, affecting local businesses, property owners, residents, shoppers and visitors, is not of the Council's making, its solution lies entirely in your hands. I know that the issues are complex, but you and only you have the knowledge, ability and will to get this resolved, and repeatedly the can has been kicked down the road. I'm a retired deputy head teacher of a secondary school. The head teacher I once served under had a saying, "Don't bring me problems, bring me solutions." And I say that to you now. I am indebted to Councillor Vickers for her tireless support in this matter. So I finish where I started, North Norfolk District Council working for Fakenham. I'm afraid from where I stand, it isn't. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we also have Mrs. Strangway Booth, Strangway Booth.
Hello, my name is Venetia Strangways Booth. I own a Venetia's Yarn Shop at 16 Norwich Street in Fakenham. I'm following on from Mrs. Parry in an appeal to the council to consider what you might do about 9 Norwich Street in your budget this year. It's an unbelievably ugly building to have one's business opposite. I've got 12-foot high windows and that scaffolding fills them all. The impact I believe it's having on Fakenham is, there are several things. One is that it's ugly. It looks terrible. If you were a visitor to Fakenham, it wouldn't give you a very good impression. Secondly, it's actually quite dangerous because it juts out into Norwich Street. So people who are passing down that side of the road have to walk into the road in order to pass it. Busy trying not to get run over, not looking at any shops. People who come down my side of the street turn their backs on my premises and gaze at the photographs and comment on how nice Fakenham used to be. What a pity, it isn't like that now, they say. It is absolutely full of pigeons, rats and other vermin. It's horrible, very unhygienic, and dirt. Rubbish is piling up behind the scaffolding. So it's just not very nice. And what I suppose I wanted to say to you really is that Fakenham town centre is dying very slowly, shop by shop. And no business is going to come and open a business in a dying town centre. They need to open a business somewhere that is going to be economically viable. And Fakenham just doesn't look like that. It's actually about how it looks. So it would be absolutely amazing if you would consider how you might sort out that building. And I agree with Mrs. Parry, solutions are needed really, not problems. I understand it is complex. I'd also like to thank Councillor Vickers for her support in this matter. She's been absolutely fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, both of you. I understand we have a response. Who is responding, please?
I believe Andrew just wanted to declare his interest.
Right.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Thank you, Jim. I just want to declare an interest in 9 Norwich Street as one of 2 major residential leaseholders. And I speak as somebody who is at the front of the queue of those most afflicted by the structural damage that occurred back in September 2019. And personally, I would also wish to see a resolution, but I would say I would agree with what has been said. It is a very, very complex situation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Adams.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, well, certainly.
Just another point of information. So I don't understand Councillor Brown's interest. Is that a pecuniary interest? Because if so, it would disqualify him. Surely it would disqualify him from speaking.
So Councillor Brown needed to declare his interest in the building. He's a leaseholder, but he is not the freehold owner of the building. He has been impacted by this, perhaps more than many others, but he has not been involved in the decisions related to this building. Okay.
Sorry. Is it a pecuniary interest that?
I think actually I'm quite concerned about this because I think it's been made clear. It's certainly not Andrew's fault he's in this position. I don't believe he's asking to be involved in any decisions on the matter.
Thank you. Perhaps if it could just simply be clarified whether it's a pecuniary interest.
Yes, I think it's probably self-evident. If you're a leaseholder, you do have a pecuniary interest. So that is in fact the case.
But we're not making any decisions on this item today. And, you know, it's a fair question that's been asked. So I think, you know, we want to answer the questions that have been put to us rightfully by members of the public. So, you know, it's the case that Andrew is certainly not and would not be involved in any decisions that were to be made. Okay. So yeah, certainly, you know, do appreciate, and as you've heard, the impacts and annoyance this situation is causing both for the town centre of Fakenham, and as you've heard, the personal impact it's had on a member here as well. Just to clarify, this isn't a budgetary consideration, is the second speaker's point. And these issues are certainly very complex with numerous individual parties involved in the property. There are actually very limited powers to secure the reuse of a property or its sale or refurbishment. It's, of course, not our property. We must also seek the consent for any work we do to the site and sadly at the ratepayer's expense as it is currently. We are seeking further work to the front elevation, including cleansing activity and the hoarding scaffolding, which we hope will commence shortly, again with freeholders' consent. And we have done everything we can up until this point, but we do have to concede this could take some time to reach the desired outcome. That said, you know, I think we are getting closer now. We have previously, in the intervening time, made the building structurally safe and prevented that crack, which was referred to from getting worse. And we are in ongoing discussion and negotiation with the freeholder to seek that conclusion, i.e. the sale, reuse or refurbishment of that plot. And still in regular contact, including this week, in fact, seeking a further meeting shortly.
Excuse me, councillor. Can I ask all members, please, to not be chatting away amongst themselves while we're receiving information?
Yes, thank you. And in terms of comparable cases across the district, because there are others you might compare to this, and indeed this is an issue that exists not just here in the district, but across the country. The powers are limited for us to get from A to Z in terms of that reuse. We're, you know, hopefully sort of halfway through that process, if not further. But this building does remain a priority among comparable cases across the district. What I would say to the members of the public, we are happy to meet with you to discuss further. I understand you've obviously been in contact with Democratic Services to arrange your speaking tonight. So if you wish to pursue a further meeting with us, you are welcome to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies, did either of you wish to come back? You have the right to reply. Thank you very much. So we move to the pay policy statement. Councillor Adams.
So this is obviously a statutory requirement as per the summary introduction. The paper gives extensive details of the pay and expenses arrangements. And of course, those of you who've been a member here longer than a year will have recognised this from previous occasions. I've nothing further to say, obviously. You know, to a certain extent, the pay policies are agreed elsewhere. the fuel allowances, etc., are standard across the nation. So happy to propose acceptance of the pay policy statement. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder, please? Councillor Shires, thank you. Does anyone wish to speak on this item? Okay, so this item having been duly proposed and seconded, can I have a show of hands, please? Looks unanimous. Thank you. Can I just check, are there any abstentions or votes against? Didn't look like there were, but I just want to check. Thank you. Okay, so we move to the non-domestic business rates policy for 24-25. Councillor Shires, please.
Thank you. This won't be the last time you hear from me this evening, so I apologise in advance. I would first like to thank Officer Knight for the paper. He has quite clearly laid out what this is for, and we're looking to agree the Appendix A, B and C, and also that the Revenue Manager, which is Officer Knight, can continue to have delegated authority to make decisions up to the cost value of £4,000, indicating Appendix A, and there is delegated authority to make hardship relief decisions up to the cost of the same value in Appendix C. And I would also like to inform Council that if we look on page 43 under item 7, where it relates to the discretionary RAFE relief panel, I believe our first panel is on the 18th of March.
Thank
That's
you,
all I need to
Councillor.
say. Thank you. And I do obviously propose this paper.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder, please? Councillor Adams, thank you. Does anyone wish to speak on this item, please? No? In which case, this paper having been duly proposed and seconded, can I have a show of hands of those in favour, please? Thank you. And those abstaining? And those against? 2 against. Thank you very much. Then we move to recommendations from Cabinet on the 8th of January. Councillor Adams, did you wish to make any comment on these?
No, other than to say that I recognise the recommendations as accurate and I'm happy to endorse them. Thank you.
And are you happy? So do we need to vote on this, don't we? Do we need to vote on-
They're my papers, if you're happy for me to speak, Chair.
Yes,
Thank you very much. So speaking on the fees and charges, this has been through the scrutiny process and has obviously come to Cabinet. It was thoroughly scrutinised, so thank you again to the Scrutiny Committee for their work on this. I just want to make a note that the car park fees and charges haven't been updated, but the car park review is fully underway and we'll expect a paper at the end of summer, if not the beginning of autumn, with proposals on that. Do you want me to speak to the Treasury Management at the same time?
yes, please.
Wonderful. The Treasury Management Strategy actually went to overview and scrutiny twice. The first time the Scrutiny Committee resolved that they would undertake further training to understand the Treasury Management Strategy, of which I was incredibly grateful. It gave me a safer knowledge that the committee fully understood where we were and the intention of the strategy. It's also been to Cabinet. I know it's quite a dry document for many people, but it will instruct us on what we would need to do should we need to borrow or make investment going forward. So thank you for everybody, especially Scrutiny Committee, you heard it twice. I really appreciate the time and the attention that you gave it.
Thank you very much. So these 2 recommendations. So we do need to vote on these.
Sorry, Madam Chair, can I
Yes,
ask a question, please?
yes, of course you do.
Thank you. It's due to the poor human rights records, and even though we may not have such investments currently, should this council send a message loud and clear to withdraw Abu Dhabi, Hong Kong and Qatar from the approved list permanently? Even though they meet the required sovereign rankings, we note that at the time of publishing this report, the status of Hong Kong was not confirmed.
Do we have a response for councillor, please? Councillor Shires?
It's my understanding that government have instructed no boycotting in these circumstances, despite our personal feelings and where our ethics lie. Should that be resolved, then I think that would be something that would come back to full council.
So please bring it back. Would anybody else like to speak on these apologies? I'm so keen to get to the budget discussion. No? In which case, these having been duly proposed, do we have a seconder, please? Councillor Fisher. Thank you. Having been duly proposed and seconded, can we go to a vote, please? All those in favour? Okay. Thank you. Do we have any abstentions, please? And any against, please? Two against. Thank you. Then I turn, please, to the chairman of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The only recommendations relevant to full council will be those relating to the budget at item 12. And I will cover those at my speaking point in the budget consideration process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, because tonight's meeting is going to be such a long one, we now envisage taking a 10-minute break to ensure that anyone that wishes to get a drink or visit the bathroom can do so before we start the budget speech, so that councillors can make sure they're here for the full debate. So thank you. You've got a 10-minute break. Right, thank you, members. So we move to the substantive issue of this evening, which is of course the budget and council tax for 24-25. There will be a number of recorded votes this evening. So just be aware that that will come later. Officer Stankley is going to speak on the robustness of the estimates, I think, before we get started.
Good evening, everybody. Section 25 of the Local Government Act 2003 requires that I report to you on the robustness of the estimates that have been made for the purpose of calculating the council tax. I have taken into account and considered all the factors that could influence or impact on the budget for 2024-25. And I am satisfied that the estimates as presented in the budget are sufficiently robust and that the reserves balances that are proposed in the report for 24-25 are adequate. Page 147 of the report has the details of what I have considered. The framework within which the budget for 24-25 has been prepared has taken into account previous years' outturn position for 22-23, the in-year budget monitoring position for 23-24, the medium-term financial strategy, which is also contained within the report, and also cash flow monitoring. The details in Appendix G, which appear on page 187, list all the considerations and the assessment and also the quantification of all the considerations that I have taken into account. We've quantified them, and the optimum level of reserves, the optimum level being the right amount as opposed to the minimum level, as we don't need to keep too much in reserves or too little. Too much means that we have previously in the past charged taxpayers too much, and too little means that we don't have adequate reserves to meet any unexpected events. As I say, it includes things such as pay inflation, any sort of insurance claims, all the risks that you would expect to be considered. And in summary, I can say that I am satisfied that the budget that has been proposed and the level of reserves the budget is satisfactory and robust, and the level of reserves are adequate.
Thank you. So I move to the proposer of the budget, please, Councillor Shires.
Good evening, members. Members, in creating this budget, our priority has been to maintain the high quality of services that our residents rely on, whilst also being fiscally responsible. I'm pleased to announce that despite the economic uncertainties that councils up and down the nation have faced, we have balanced the budget for the up and coming year. This achievement is testament to the hard work and dedication of everyone involved in the budgeting process. Over the past 4 years, we've invested significantly in the coastal and visitor economy and public facilities. We have invested 12.7 million in the Reef Leisure Centre in Sheringham, 2 million in public convenience improvement in programme, including the newly built facilities in Fakenham, North Walsham and Wells, and soon to be built in Holt. 4.9 million in the purchase of new refuse vehicles, 1.2 million invested in the Grade 2 listed Chroma Pier, 2.5 million on the purchase of temporary accommodation to support our homeless households, and 560,000 on the solar carport at the Reef. Our council is facing significant financial challenges due to the various external factors beyond our control. These include the ongoing war in Ukraine, high inflation rates, rising interest rates, labour shortages, the lingering impacts of COVID-19, a cost of living crisis, and a vastly uncertain economic outlook. These factors have led to persistently high utility and contract costs, resulting in increased demands for higher pay rises and a surge in the need for our council services, particularly our residents who are sadly facing homelessness. While the current government only covers approximately 14% of the cost of temporary accommodation, there remains a substantial shortfall, projected to exceed 600,000 by the end of the current financial year and likely to continue into the next fiscal year. We have included 900,000 in this budget in our response to the homelessness that our residents are facing in our district. This situation is not unique to our council. Similar pressures are being felt by local authorities nationwide. Perhaps now is also the time to add a single word that has affected each and every one of our residents beyond our control: austerity. Councillor Adams and I have been clear in our genuine willingness for all members of this council to work together in the budget setting process for North Norfolk residents. All members were invited to join the Cabinet and officers in our corporate plan workshop in September to outline our actions in our priority, a strong, responsible and accountable council. This was the first step we took together. Members have had 5 opportunities before this evening to contribute to this budget, beyond the workshop and full council agreement of the corporate plan and action plan. I would like to take this opportunity to thank members of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee again for their time and work with me in getting us to where we are today. Again, I ask for your support in the coming year through the budget monitoring process. We started this process with a £1.8 million gap when I presented the budget to Overview and Scrutiny in December. It would be incorrect of me to not mention the delays in the Levelling Up Bill as a contributing factor to this. When we sat here in February last year, we had anticipated that the 100% premium that can be charged on second homes would be coming into this budget, as this council has previously agreed. Whilst we will see this 550,000 in the 2025-26 budget, this delay has had an impact on the budget we're setting. I wish to highlight the work that has been undertaken by officers across our council in getting us to the balanced budget that I'm presenting today. Officers have understood the challenges that we face and have risen to that through the savings and income generation proposals that have been brought forward. The proposals that have been accepted to be presented as part of this budget are in the majority internal savings that will have the lowest amount of impact on our residents. Throughout this process, I want to thank officers for their dedication to North Norfolk and to the future sustainability of our council. I want to thank them for accepting the challenge that Cabinet have offered and for understanding that we desire to preserve services. I'd also like to thank my Cabinet colleagues for their acceptance and respect of my challenge to their portfolio budgets. I know it's not been a comfortable conversation for them. Following significant and successful lobbying efforts by the LGA, DCN and councils across the country, further funding was announced by the government just 4 weeks ago on the 24th of January. This has enabled us to reduce the amount we will take from reserves. The Overview and Scrutiny Committee supported this decision in discussions held last week. The local government finance settlement assumes that district councils apply the maximum increase before a referendum is required of 3% or £5 in council tax. This budget includes an increase of £4.95 for a Band D property, a little less than 10 pence a week. From each pound of council tax that we collect, only 8 pence stays with our council. 8 pence, and we do a huge amount with that. 95 pence goes to Norfolk County Council, 14 pence to the Norfolk Police Authority, and the remaining 3 pence goes to town and parish councils. In this budget, we are also committing further capital investment of over £3 million in our district. We are committing a further £1,720,000 to our greener future, which includes Holt Country Park electricity improvements, installing solar photovoltaic panels at Victory Swim and Fitness in North Walsham, and energy efficiencies in our public convenience and additional funding in our coastal defences. We are committing a further £514,500 to our developing our communities pledge through much needed backstage refurbishment at the Cromer Pier Pavilion Theatre, Holt Country Park staff facilities, and the renovation of the Grade 1 listed church wall in Cromer, plus electronic access control in our changing places facilities. We are committing a further 480,000 in investing in our local economy and infrastructure, including car park refurbishments and replacing lighting and cliff railings at the West Prom in Sheringham. And let us not forget this, in addition to the already accepted capital programme, which includes the success of our levelling up bid for Fakenham Leisure and Sports Hub, bringing an additional 10.8 million of investment. We are a council committed to our residents. Beyond today, we must look at the future of this council's finances, as every council will be doing across the country, and we must do this together. There is significant uncertainty regarding funding levels for local authority, with 2 major reviews pending implementation. The current funding system is widely recognised as inadequate and unfit for purpose. A fair funding review, long postponed, is expected to favour authorities with social care responsibilities, potentially impacting district authorities negatively. The base budget for 24-25 and projections for the following year show a growing deficit. Additionally, there is a pending reform of business rates expected at around 2026-27, with potential negative impacts on the council's business rate income. However, due to lack of details, business rate income levels have been maintained at the 24-25 level. We are not standing still. Action is already underway to address the forecasted deficits through service reviews in the coming financial year. Plans are being developed to examine service delivery methods and achieve savings, allowing for changes or cessation in service through the medium-term financial strategy period. While I cannot promise an absence of difficult decisions in the future, I can assure you of our unwavering commitment to navigate these challenges with prudence and foresight. My final thanks must go to our Section 151 officer, Mrs. Stankley, and our finance team. I wholeheartedly thank you on behalf of this council for your efforts in bringing us to the position of a balanced budget. Madam Chair, I propose that this is our budget for the coming financial year.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor, can I just say that I think you made a slight error in your adding up, because my maths is pretty appalling, but I realised that 95p and 8p were already over the pound. So I think you meant
75 pence, sorry.
75p.
It
Thank
feels
you.
like 95 pence goes to the county council.
I'm not going to comment. Thank you. Can I ask, is there a seconder for the budget, please? Councillor Adams, and do you wish to reserve your right to
I
speak?
do, thank you.
Thank you. So I move to you, Councillor Cushing. You have 20 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. 20 minutes. I'll speak quickly then. First of all, I'd like to add my thanks to Officer Stankley and the finance team for all the work they've done in order to prepare this budget, and particular thanks to Officer Stankley for being generous with her time to the Conservative finance team. You've been very patient answering and forbearing answering an awful lot of questions, and it's certainly helped enlighten us in terms of our understanding of the budget that lies before us. I'd also congratulate Councillor Shires on her first budget oration, as articulate as I'd expect it to be. This is the 5th year that I've actually replied on as leader of the opposition, so getting something of a veteran of these occasions now. Something that Councillor Shires and I can agree on is that these are challenging times for local government. However, where I disagree with Councillor Shires is that matters have been made considerably worse by this administration, whose approach over the last 4 years can only be described as complacent and clueless. The predicted budget deficit for the next financial year was forecast in the very first budget debate, in which I responded on behalf of the opposition back in February 2020. I'd only just been elected the leader of the Conservative group following my election as a councillor in 2019. As would be expected in those circumstances, I knew less then than I know about the budget. But the one point I did raise was that the estimated shortfalls in the years ahead, and I asked what the administration was going to do about it. The reply I received from Councillor Seaward, who was then the finance portfolio holder, was not to worry about it. He said there had always been predicted shortfalls in the past, and these had not materialised. Consequently, the administration planned to take no action to address them. Now, in response to that, I said it'd be wise to hope for the best, but plan for the worst. Yet my advice was ignored. I have repeated that message at every subsequent budget debate. I pleaded with this administration to take the issue seriously, only for it to fall on deaf ears year after year. Now, this is what I actually said in the February 2021 debate. The picture darkens considerably in the years to come. It was predicted that there will be an annual budget deficit for every financial year from 23 to 24. It should be a major priority of this administration to put plans in motion this financial year to address these predicted shortfalls. Yet we have nothing, which is a complete dereliction of duty. What is striking about this budget is that the medium-term financial strategy is that there is no credible strategy to address the anticipated shortfalls in the year to come. There's nothing other than vague intentions to devise a viable strategy. Now, even 2 years ago, Councillor Seaward said, and I quote from the minutes, despite concerns, previous years demonstrated that the forecast deficits had not materialised. Therefore, the Liberal administration was still not going to worry about it or do much to address predicted shortfalls. Therefore, I would say the description of being complacent and clueless is thoroughly justified. Councillor Shah's speech ought to be accompanied by the sounds of clucking chickens, as they are certainly coming home to roost now. Councillor Shah has emphasised the fact that this year's financial settlement was late being confirmed, which had made the budget setting process more challenging. All members can agree on the fact that we'd like a long-term solution to local authority funding to enable us to understand what level of support we can expect to receive from the government each year. However, the only certainty we have each year is that the situation will be uncertain, so we must plan accordingly. The fact remains that the demands for government resources have increased significantly because of the global challenges arising from the pandemic and the inflationary pressures generated by international conflicts, which Councillor Shah has acknowledged in her speech. Consequently, there has been a squeeze on available funding for local authorities, which is only likely to continue. Indeed, it has been highlighted in the report that business rates are likely to be reformed in years to come to the detriment of councils. At the local government level, there has been considerable increase in spending pressures in 4 key areas: children's services, adult social care, school travel, and homelessness. Though homelessness is having a major impact on our budget, the first 3 have a far greater financial impact, which are being borne by the county council, who are responsible for them. At the start of this year, it was predicted that next year's budget would be in deficit by nearly 1.8 million. Therefore, we are grateful to the government for giving an additional allocation of just over 300,000 to help close the gap. I am pleased that we have been presented with a balanced budget for the next financial year, which obviously is a legal requirement. However, they've only managed to do this by going into full panic mode over the last 2 months, as officers and cabinets have scrambled around desperately trying to find last-minute savings and additional income. We can see the result listed on the agenda, and this runs to 49 items, which total 975,000 of savings and potential income. Nearly 50% of those are one-off savings, so they'll be non-repeatable in years to come. We also have a line item of 250,000 of savings yet to be confirmed. That is a further demonstration of the last-minute scrambling. Put this in context, this is the first time that a budget has been presented to this council, which can only be balanced with some unquantifiable savings. Now, Councillor Shahs did explain the options being considered to fill this hole to members of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee last week. However, any competent administration would have allowed sufficient time for the annual budget review process present to be fully costed for members to consider. Prior to the budget exercise, there's been no notable sign of any action or activity being taken to address the impending deficit. This is a clear indication of an administration that has certainly not been focused on making sure it is financially sustainable. This administration did not fix the roof while the sun was shining. By the dereliction of desire to do anything about it, they have made matters considerably worse. Now, with regards to the council tax, Liberal Democrats are opposing to increase it again. My group has a proud record of opposing that, which we will maintain this year. I accept the necessity of increasing these for the county council, as they are facing tough challenges, as I explained earlier, with children's and adult social care. The County Council has at least been aware of the issue and been endeavoured to make its services more efficient. Until we see similar commitment from this administration, we will oppose any rises, as we believe there is more this council will do without resort to putting their hands even deeper into the pocket of taxpayers in North Norfolk. I'll now turn to the medium-term financial strategy. The aim of this is to pull together in one place all known factors affecting the financial position and sustainability of an organisation over the medium term. The MTFS balances the financial implications of objectives and policies against constraints in resources and provides the basis for decision making. The MTFS should be a living document that forms a basis of fiscal strategy for public bodies. What this tells us, it should be a standalone document that goes into some depth to analyse the financial issues that face this council. Instead, we have barely a page that tells us nothing other than the forecast in years to come. By contrast, we have been given 157 pages of the council tax reduction scheme. Now, I appreciate that's important, but suggest a summary would have sufficed. It does make you question the perspective of an administration that believes the medium-term financial strategy, which should probe the very viability of this council's future, is worth just one page, whereas a scheme that affects a minority of residents is worth 157 pages. At last week's overview and scrutiny meeting, Councillor Shire said to us that to let us know what we want to do with regards to the MTFS. Though we will gladly do this, I do think an administration facing the dire financial challenges that we have would do this without wanting to be prompted by us, as it will certainly give value in future. What we do have indicate future forecasts look bleak indeed, with predicted deficits of 1.8 million next year, 3 million in 26-27 and 3.3 million in 27-28. It should be noted these figures also don't include the additional anticipated burden that will come with collecting kitchen waste commercially from 2025 and households from 2026. These are estimates that should fill us with dread, though I hope finally the administration will start taking the predicted shortfall seriously. Considering this, I have to say it is astonishing that the administration does not have financial sustainability as a theme in its own right in their corporate plan. Instead, we are evasively told it's embedded in everything they do. Well, if it's embedded in everything you do, why have you been rushing around in panic mode these last months trying to balance the budget? Had a Conservative administration been elected last May, not only would we have had financial sustainability as a theme in it, but it had also been our #1 priority. Failure to do this now threatens the council's ability to deliver vital services in future. It's an absolute abdication of responsibility not to do this. We often hear about cabinet members wail about central government funding, but they really need to do more. We need to do what we can to help ourselves. Now, I appreciate all this has been, it sounds like I'm being very unduly harsh and simply criticising the opposition. That's our job. But over the years, we have actually offered sensible suggestions about what you might do to help improve the budget. Not least among those is working collaboratively with the other 7 districts and borough councils in Norfolk to see if there's services that could be shared. We've already had one example, which is the waste contract, which we have with Breckland and Kingsley and West Norfolk Borough Council. This would have initiated under the last Conservative administration and, to be fair, finalised under this administration. Broadland and South Norfolk District Councils have been working together for several years. Some time ago, John Fuller, now Lord Fuller, the leader of South Norfolk District Council, said this has saved over £10 million. All 7 districts are relatively small corporate entities, all providing much the same services. There simply must be savings to be made in this area. One area that I know something about is IT, which is my background. This council has a very small IT team. I'm sure the other ones do too. And I know it takes economies of scale to deliver IT savings. This is just one example. There must be many more, but there needs to be a desire to embrace change, though. The world moves on and this council must move on with it. Now I'll move on to the corporate capital programme. The first observation I'll make is its size. The existing programme already had 69 items on the list, which I would say is far too large. With the addition of the 15 that are being added this year, it's ballooned to 84 items. Given the financial constraints on this council, this is patently nonsense and further proof of a lack of firm grip on the council's budget. Some items keep getting carried over year after year without any challenge, and a prime example is the collector's cabin in Cromer, which has been on there since Adam was a lad. The only items that I would expect to be added are ones which are absolutely imperative to continue to deliver the mandatory services. On the new list, we've got is one which stands out, which again, Councillor Syed mentioned, which is Holt Country Park electricity improvement, which to add £250,000 to the existing budget of 150,000, which is already sitting in the capital programme. In addition, there's another 93,500 for staff facilities. I simply do not believe that spending nearly £500,000 on Holt Country Park is justifiable in the current constrained financial circumstances. The administration needs to get a grip and prioritise it down to an achievable level. This could be done by prioritising, by defining what is mandatory, discretionary but vital, like toilet provision, and nice to haves, which should be struck from the list. For this reason, my group will abstain on the recommendation of the existing capital programme and vote against the new additions. I mentioned financial sustainability would have been a theme in a Conservative corporate plan. Another theme would have been focused on the aiming to deliver a fair share of council spending across the district. We felt for a long time this council has been focused its resources too heavily on Cromer and Sheringham to the detriment of the rest of the district. This is evidenced in the existing capital programme, where there are 8 projects for Cromer and 6 for Sheringham, totaling 4.5 million. In addition, the new capital plan and the ones they're going to add another 2 for Cromer as well. Now, both have benefited greatly over the last few years from capital spending, most noticeably on the Cromer Pier, which is a listed building, so a regulatory requirement, and got no problem with that. And also the Reef Swimming Pool, which is and gym at Sheringham, which we've always been pleased to support. But going forward, there needs to be a more equitable approach to capital spending across North Norfolk. I've regularly waved a banner for Fakenham, as you all know, and delighted that we are receiving a levelling up grant of 9.8 million from the government to build a new swimming pool and 3G artificial pitch, and also added with some match funding from this council and the Football Foundation. But other places need help too. And a good example would be Stalham, which is one of our most deprived areas and has seen little come its way in the past year. I'm sure that my colleagues, Councillor Bayes and Councillor Taylor, will have more to say on this as the debate ensues. Also, our rural communities make a large portion of the district and often largely ignores, and that's why we have submitted an amendment to try and save the sustainable community funds, which we believe is so important. Small grants can make a world of difference to small organisations and parishes. In conclusion, I would say this is a typical Liberal Democrat council. They crave power, but haven't a clue how to exercise it properly if they get it. They often sit in this chamber, pass motions, send letters to the government ministers, which they know will have no impact, but gives the impression they're doing something and get a few inches in the column inches in the EDP. Yet when it comes to the budget, they've been utterly complacent and ignored the impending deficits that threaten many of our key services that this council is mandated to deliver for the benefit of North Norfolk residents. Had they taken notice of my warnings in prior budget debates, they'd be in a considerably better position than they are now. The medium-term financial strategy does not even scratch the surface of the issues it should analyse. The corporate plan is out of control. Wherever you look, there is an abiding feeling of a lack of firm grip by this administration, why I believe their approach has been truly complacent and clueless. Sadly, in conclusion, I have to say I have little confidence they will amend their ways, so I believe the outlook for this council is bleak indeed. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cushing. Councillor Fitch-Tillett, you also have 20 minutes. Thank you very much.
Madam Chairman, I regret that I don't really have much to add. I was caught a little bit short by being ill coming back, and I have not had the opportunity to study anything in great detail. However, I have to say that I was particularly impressed with my colleague, Councillor Cushing.
Thank you, Councillor Fitch-Tillett. Councillor Shires, you can respond to the opposition group leader's replies. You have 10 minutes to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. You certainly do like your C words, Councillor Cushing: complacent, clueless, and clucking chickens. the challenging times was gladly welcome in your alliteration. So I'm going to get in my time machine and take the council back to the 2018-2019 budget, where there were predicted deficits in subsequent years. I'm not aware that that was a Liberal Democrat administration. So if I'd have gone back to 2019 in my time machine and said, these are the issues that I think you're going to face over the coming years, every single person in the chamber would have not agreed that that was going to be the case. And had I told them that they were failing to prepare for things that they were unaware were coming, I don't believe that they would have accepted that. So whilst I agree that a time machine would be useful, and if they were available and we had capital to spend on them, perhaps we could go back to 2018 and warn the administration that darker days were coming. However, let's just skip straight to the medium-term financial strategy. Having sat in Overview and Scrutiny Committee for a very, very long time as a cabinet member, it feels like a long time in the grand scheme of things. It isn't. I sit and I'm told there's too much detail. There isn't enough detail. There isn't the detail we want. We can't understand it. It's too complex. We need it in a different way. Having sat and presented this budget to Overview and Scrutiny Committee 3 times, I have been open in my willingness to work with members to present information in a way that works to them. If opposition members want me to withdraw that, then that is down to them, but I will not stop asking what information do members want to see? What information is too much? What information isn't enough? Because without everybody being able to understand where we're heading and the challenges we're facing, we will end up in the position where we have opposition members throwing mud from the other side of the chamber without realising that less than 6 years ago, they were in exactly the same position, actually forecasting deficits and actually suggesting that council tax needed to go up. In reference to council tax, government has been very strong in its statement that we need to have local taxation. There is no rescue coming from government. And unfortunately, as much as we would like them to do the right thing for local services, quite frankly, the current government are not. While we all sit hopeful that there'll be a change in government, that isn't going to come for this financial budget, unfortunately. And I greatly, greatly wish we were sat in a different position with a different government who actually cared about local services for local people.
Thank you, Councillor Shires. Councillor Cushing, you have 10 minutes to respond.
Well, if you want to talk about that, obviously the last Conservative administration was before the time of most of us been here, but I'll tell you one thing that the last Conservative administration actually did, and that was actually increase the reserves markedly, which to the great, actually at the time, I understand from my colleague, Councillor Fitzpatrick, the then Liberal Democrat opposition opposed. They said they should be spending that money as they went along. The Conservatives built it up enormously, which is this great benefit of this current administration, that we do have that cushion of reserves there, thanks to the work they did, because they did have the foresight to see coming down the line that life would potentially be difficult. You mentioned the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and there seems to be an element of a criticism in there. I would remind Councillor Shires, as she sits through all of that all the heavy lifting in that committee is actually done by the Conservatives and the independent member, who I suspect contribute to probably about 95% of the analysis and indeed the scrutiny, the clues in the title, of what that committee is there to do. And we have often fed back what we'd like to see, and it's interesting, we feedback we want to see, and then we get the pushback is, well, why didn't you tell us earlier? Well, we do as we go on, but you would actually think you'd also have some ideas about actually what is appropriate. And a one-page financial, medium-term financial forecast by any definition is a nonsense. Should be robust, but should be one of the key documents is held by this council in terms of doing that. So yeah. So there we are. I can't really add any more. I think all the points I've made speak for themselves. Had you taken notice of what I've been saying since I first came to this budget debate 4 years ago, this council administration will be considerably better off than you are now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cushing. Councillor Fitztillett.
I will pass. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. To ask if we have any amendments, and I believe we do have one amendment this evening. I understand that this was submitted in advance to the Section 151 officer. Is that correct? Thank you. So who would like to propose this? Councillor Holiday?
Ma'am, can I propose this amendment?
Okay, and can I just check that you have a seconder, please? Councillor Fitzpatrick will be seconding. Okay, so I'm just checking. Yeah. Please go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. Do you guys want a minute to read it? Do you want me to read it out for you? Do you want to read it out? My moment of fame. I've been waiting for this. Okay. This amendment proposes that the Sustainable Communities Fund is retained with an annual funding of £130,000. The funding for this will need to be found either from future revenue or the reserves. The Sustainable Communities Fund, which was previously known as the Big Society Fund, has existed for several years. The aim of this fund is to help build strong and sustainable communities and ensure the long-term future and well-being of our communities here in North Norfolk. Sustainable communities are defined as places in which people want to live and work now and in the future. They meet the diverse needs of existing and future residents, are sensitive to their environment, and contribute to a good and sustainable quality of life. The fund helps communities to develop new and innovative projects which will improve their environment as well as their health and social well-being. The fund assists communities in meeting their needs, with funding available for both capital and revenue projects that meet the fund's criteria. The grants are administered by a grants panel made of 7 elected members that meet 4 times a year to award grants of between £1,000 and £15,000. The fund particularly benefits smaller communities which find it hard to raise funds for projects. Small parishes make a large proportion of our district and, unlike the market towns, tend not to benefit from capital spending projects. It is understood that there is significant pressure on council finances this year. However, this is a relatively small sum in the context of the whole budget, yet it delivers a disproportionately large benefit to our residents. Over the last few years, dozens of payments have been made which have totalled hundreds of thousands of pounds, which have done an enormous amount of good for many people. In addition, it is harder to resurrect the fund once it is closed. We encourage members to support this amendment. So I've got a brief speechlet.
Okay,
May I make it?
thank you.
Okay, so I would like to propose this amendment for retaining the Sustainable Communities Fund. This is a fund which supports grassroots organisations right across the district with grants to help towards projects which build strong and sustainable communities. In the last financial year, £115,000 has been awarded to and welcomed by a diverse group of organisations. Examples include the purchase of a second table tennis club for a village club, funding towards the purchase and fitting of 2 air source pumps for a youth club, contributions towards replacing a sports pavilion at a village sports club, funding to establish a walking netball club, contributing to the refurbishment of a children's play area, and purchasing and fitting a kitchen and a new village hall. This funding will have made a difference to thousands of Norfolk residents. And we want to continue to improve our community's well-being, and therefore I'm very happy to propose this amendment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Fitzpatrick, did you wish to speak now?
I'll reserve the right to speak later. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, because we have quite a long evening ahead of us with the debate on the budget as well, can I ask members to make sure they are concise and to the point with their questions, please? Would anybody like to raise a question? Lucy? Councillor Shires?
Yes, I have some sympathy with Councillor Fitzpatrick actually, and I am really grateful for his desire to keep this fund going. I know it predates me in origin, so I am very sympathetic. And I genuinely would have loved to have continued this fund, and I mean that sincerely. And hearing the proposal of amendment read out loud, it actually does fill me with a huge sense of achievement for our district that this council has been able to facilitate so many projects. And thank you for highlighting the worthiness of the fund. And it is regretfully that has come as part of our budget setting process that we will be ceasing that or pausing it rather currently. And I genuinely, and I mean this wholeheartedly, would have loved to accept the amendment. But it's not a fully funded amendment, unfortunately, and we've got no idea which reserve it would come from, or which surveys are proposed to be cut in order to fund it. And in that vein, I'm really sorry, but I can't accept the amendment. Although what I would like to say is that doesn't mean that I'm removing my desire to at some point in the future reinstate the fund. That is something that I am very open to and cabinet colleagues are open to, and I hope every member of this chamber is open to in the current financial climate. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, I can't accept the amendment.
Thank you. Who else would like to speak? Councillor Penfold, and then I believe Councillor Punchard would like to speak.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the amendment, which I think we all have sympathy for, because we recognise the excellent work that the Sustainable Communities Fund has done over the last 5 years. And it's been a great pleasure for me to chair it. So I wanted to start by just thanking all members who have served on the panel of all political groups, and indeed who has served on its predecessor, the Big Society Fund. In particular, Madam Chairman, I'd like to thank the officers who have supported the panel and the communities throughout North Norfolk who have applied for funding. And I'd like to single out in that Sonia Shooter and Sharon Garth for their hard work and the advice and the guidance they have given us and our communities over the years. I'm sure I speak on behalf of all panel members in thanking them most sincerely. Madam Chairman, we all recognise, therefore, the fantastic work that the Sustainable Communities Fund has done over the years through many hundreds of grants, totaling hundreds of thousands of pounds. So, as I say, I do have sympathy with the amendment in its aspirations. I think the problem, as Councillor Shires has said, is that it isn't a fully funded amendment, which does make it quite difficult to support for me. The Big Society Fund was originally funded via the County Council, who returned a percentage of taxation on second homes to the district. However, this stopped, I think, in 2018, 2019, and we've been topping the Sustainable Communities Fund, its successor, up ever since. However, if you forgive the pun, that isn't sustainable. So my suggestion would be, I think, to try and draw a positive here, that the Conservative group leader, Councillor Cushing, in fact, all group leaders sign a joint letter to the County Council seeking retention of a greater proportion of the emerging second homes premium. And I think in this way, if it was agreed by the County Council, it may be possible to unpause the Sustainable Communities Fund. So that's a proposal I would like to put to Councillor Cushing and Councillor Fitch-Tillett to work with Councillor Adams on a letter to the County Council. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Punchard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Despite my youthful looks, believe it or not, I've been on this council for 4 terms now and can remember the robust discussions I had with Councillor Fitzpatrick around the inception of the Big Society Fund, when it was originally the funding was removed for the paid positions in the area partnerships and the money was going to be brought in-house and administered. So groups, communities and others would benefit directly from the money rather than having to be an administrator. I had seen the good work of area partnerships being done in my town when I was on the town council and was a great supporter of them. And I had to eat my words for Councillor Fitzpatrick because the Big Society Fund has been administered superbly, as Councillor Penfold says, and think it is something we really should continue, because we did promise the people of North Norfolk that we would continue to support funding projects directly, which is what this fund has been doing. And part of the ethos of this administration, I thought, was to protect and serve the communities of North Norfolk, and this does a great deal to help that. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Punchard. Councillor Heinrich.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It's useful to remember that the funding for the Sustainable Communities Fund in this last year was taken from the UK SPF. Regrettably, there are other areas we have to cover on that to meet the government requirements for the way in which that funding is spent. However, members should know that under the REPF, the Rural England Prosperity Fund, there is specific capital funding for community groups, infrastructure projects, cultural, historic and heritage groups, and volunteers in social action. Those are between 10 and 50,000 pounds, and regrettably we don't administer those ourselves because most of these grants are administered via the LEP in accordance with the scheme for the bulk of the UK SPF funding. So there is funding available. It's in different form. Except it's more complex to access. There is also, of course, funding to communities affected by the cable laying in relation to the offshore wind schemes, and both Orsted and Vattenfall, whoever is currently running that particular show, have schemes in place. In the case of the Vattenfall one, it was supposed to be 700,000 a year to communities along the route. So there are still sources of funding. And I would certainly agree with Councillor Shires that as soon as possible, we would like to bring back the Sustainable Communities Fund. But to try and do it now, when we've already been moaned at having something that's uncosted somewhere, is to put another uncosted, it's just madness. You know, well, unless you're Jeremy Hunt, in which case he does it all the time. But there you go. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This amendment to continue the much-loved Big Society and then Sustainable Communities Fund would give the abundance of villages and hamlets across the district the chance to access funding to deliver improvement schemes with disproportionate high benefits compared to the modest fund size. It also helps to fill the equality gap that we see and feel when several of our towns receive major funding awards. In respect of the proposals from councillors Penfold and Heinrich, yes, we can play all sorts of hypothecation games to evade the real issue. This is a modest but highly effective scheme that's easily capable of continuation if there is a genuine will to do so. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, councillor Dixon. Councillor Withington.
Thank you. I do find it strange, really, that councillor Dixon has just said that there's not a genuine will for this to continue. I don't think there's any member of cabinet here or any member who wants to see this fund go, and we've all seen those benefits in our communities. But I'm going to take people back to when I was chair of the Parish Town Council Forum, and I'll probably make Officer Blatch twitch at this point when we start to mention, because we were regularly in not conflict, but we had regular, strong and robust discussions, shall we say, about the money that was then coming from county for the Second Homes Council tax, which Norfolk County Council had decided they were going to, the first year, just cut. And actually it was representation from those parish and town councils through the forum that we agreed a sliding reduction, with the view and the knowledge that at some point that money would disappear, regrettably, completely. NNDC at that point did continue with the Big Society Fund. However, it was never promised that would continue. It would be on the basis that as it could be managed within a budget. So I think to say that it was there for definite and we have done something which has broken a promise, I think is rather misleading. Councillor Cushing also mentioned, I think on 3 occasions in his various sets of comments, that we should be focusing on mandatory services. I don't think this particular fund does, if I'm correct, come into mandatory services, and it's therefore ironic that you're now bashing us over the head with that to say we should be doing that. And in terms of an equality gap, I thought that I never get the letters right, Councillor Hynek will have to sort me out. The UK, thank you.
UK Shape Authority Fund,
Fine.
but rural England.
Yes,
Authority
the
Fund.
rep. There is a considerably larger sum there available, and it is genuinely available for people. So I think in the light that we have a very, very difficult budget to deal with, I think it is probably, you know, our only choice that we could do that, but knowing that there is something there to support our communities. And, you know, regrettably, I would love to see us plough even more money into it, but that's not going to be possible at the moment. And I do know that around these tables, people would welcome that coming back at a point when we can manage it as part of a sustainable financial package that serves our community.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Vardy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I've written down here crocodile tears, because that's all we're getting from this administration. Sorry, Howard, you obviously, half of you have said that you'd like to see this remain or at some time in the future. Another half of you have said, no, get rid of it for whatever reason, because we can't afford it. It's time this council had a vision, recognising its commitment to our smaller, communities. With this in mind, Madam Chairman, and so those communities know exactly where they stand with this council. I'm going to ask for a name vote on this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Toy.
Jay, I assume, Madam Chair. Thank you. Councillor Jay Toy, sorry, just making sure it was me that was to talk. I didn't know if the other Councillor Toy was asking to talk. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, what we just heard there, recognise our commitments. I think we've done that after over many years by maintaining this fund that has been cut and cut and cut to us. I absolutely delight in the fund. I've got 9 parishes and I've seen the developments that it's bringing. But as has been said by Councillor Withington, we have to decide what's core, which is we've been told by the opposition, that's what we should have been doing. That we shouldn't be using reserves that they built up, but now we should use those reserves. I think the ones that don't have focus are the people that have brought this amendment uncosted to us. We would love to do it, but we have been through that process. They have had the opportunity to be part of that process through the overview and scrutiny. Whilst I would love to see the sustainable communities, I cannot support the amendment. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Toy. Councillor Adams.
Well, really, I just wanted to offer a very basic commitment that when we are able to identify £130,000 net increased income or cost savings, so that's over, just to clarify what I mean there, over and above the current cost inflation crises that we are facing in terms of housing, we will be looking to reintroduce this. And certainly, I would suspect in a very similar way that we have a cross-party panel, you know, that again adjudicates and selects the grants for recommendation that then go to the leader to approve. And in the meantime, we will be seeking to promote directly the other sources of grant funding that's available. But this is a very simple mathematical impossibility here. You know, we cannot continue to make this grant available, sadly, in the present time, and we all, I think, in the room want to see it continue as it is now, but we certainly want to see it return in future. So I just wanted to offer that simple commitment, really, in terms of where we see it as a leadership group of the council and what we hope to achieve in future. But it is important, as was raised earlier, to look at that retention of the second homes council tax funding. You know, it's communities like those in the coastal areas that have benefited from this funding, small villages who are also impacted by second homes, going back to, of course, the retention of council tax monies on second homes with the Big Society Fund. And it's right that we at the coalface of the issue with housing impacts, impacts on communities through having not full-time occupation of properties, should be seeing a much greater retention rather than just the mere 8% or £550,000 out of an £8.5 million pot potentially as envisaged at the moment. So I think we've got work to do as a cross-party group, really, here to try and secure that. And I hope the opposition joins us on that journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cushing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll keep my comments brief. Well, thank Councillor Penfold. Yet again, here we go. Write some letters and that will do the job. Well, there we go. I'll come to Councillor Heinrich. Obviously, the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, we can obviously be grateful to the government for giving us a large allocation of funding to spend across the different districts. So I thank Councillor Heinrich for highlighting that. Having said that, I have for the last month or more been trying to work out, actually get information out of the administration as to actually how that money is being allocated. And I do have something that's come through in terms of the current allocations, but God alone knows who makes the decisions on and what. So his suggestion that we actually use that, at least the Sustainable Communities Fund, is an open process. We understand who's making the decisions and the criteria for it. I still have absolutely no idea what the criteria for making decisions around way money is allocated for the UK Prosperity Fund. But anyway, that's work in progress, I'm sure. I have to say the response from the administration will be a bit of blow to many. I think, as Councillor Dixon said in his speech, they are small sums of money, but they do disproportionately a large amount of good. When we sit in this chamber and at full council after full council, we debate North Walsham, Cromer, Sheringham, Fakenham, etc. But the fact is, most of our district is made up of 125 parishes, very small bodies of people who just do not have the resources to get hold of any reasonable amount of funding, even a few £100s, which will make a lot of difference. I suppose where we were coming from with the amendment, no, it wasn't funded, but I suppose it was the view of where's the will, there's a way, or alternatively, the administration might come back saying, no, 130 grand's not doable at the moment, but lesser amount might have been. And I think certainly had we been in charge, we would certainly have looked for find some way of funding a relatively, say, in the great scheme of things, it's a relatively small beer, but as I say, it would have made a lot of difference. So anyway, the response has been, I think, really very disappointing. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cushing. I'm going to consider that we have debated this amendment enough and move to the seconder, Councillor Fitzpatrick.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, I say this amendment was put to the Section 151 officer and it's robust. It's asking for the money to fund either for future revenue or the reserves, and there are adequate reserves to fund it. I'd like to thank Councillor Punchard for his endorsement of what was the Big Society Fund, then son of Big Society Fund, which is Sustainable Community Fund. And very unfortunately now, it's got another name. It's the Unsustainable Community Fund, but of course it is sustainable. When it was first raised by Trevor Ivory way back in 2011, I too was one of the skeptics about this handing money out, but I was proven wrong, and I'm very glad that I was proven wrong. And it's all very well talking about money being available elsewhere. Yeah, if you're a larger association, a larger group, or even a larger community, but for small communities, small parishes, small groups, getting money is virtually impossible. And the great thing about this was that it's run in-house. It wasn't run in-house the first year. It was passed out to one of our other community grant giving organizations. And one of the, after a year, I did the review. That's on that. And I recommended bringing it in-house. And I'm very glad I did, because Councillor Penfold has mentioned just how highly regarded the officers are. And one of the things that's come back is how it's painless. We couldn't do it without the help we got. So small communities wanting swing parks and all the rest of it. So I'll get on to the town and parish forum later, but you know, it's something that gives benefit right across this whole area. We're looking at projects, large projects, 4.5 million ones of projects for 2 or 3 places in this district. The great thing about it was that it gives benefit, has been said again and again and again, to those small communities. And it's not just money, it's not just putting in swing parks, it's not just putting in kitchens in the rugby club, a lavatory at the back of the church, or giving better insulation and better heating to the village hall. Some of those can get money from the Sheringham Shoal Fund, but very few, because most places in the district are out of it. So it's something that this council was doing. But the great thing about getting these projects going is it provides that community cohesion, it brings people together, and that's the best thing about it. The fact that they've come together, even if it's put in hot water in the lavatories, it brings people together in a way they wouldn't otherwise have done. And I think that's something we drop at our peril. But that money came from the county council. They agreed for years to return a proportion of the original council charge to us, and it was decided not to fund area partnerships, which benefit the market towns. So this was done. It benefits everyone. And then the town and parish forum, with the best of intentions, went to the county council in 2016. I have a letter from all about it
Sorry,
here.
Councillor Fitzpatrick. Can I just remind everyone that we need to be listening to Councillor Fitzpatrick, please?
So, yeah. So in 2013-14, we get nearly £1 million from the county council. They reduced that. We had cross-party support to say that I was a county councillor and leader here. Biggest support we got was from Brenda Arthur, the Labour leader of Norwich City Council, to keep that money coming. It was reduced by 50%. So we're running about 450, 500,000 pounds, 2016, 17, 17, 18. And then people went and said, don't give it to the district, give it to the parishes. And the Section 151 officer at the county said, we hear that it shouldn't go to the district, we'll just keep it. And that's what happened. So we've lifted off the fat of that since. Yeah, very well, let's go to the county and ask for it. However, I think we've heard all the talk about building communities, it's on the website and all the rest of it. The way we do that is we help the smaller communities. A lot of the stuff that's been done tonight is for the larger communities, but it doesn't benefit the smaller ones. So I would say to all, and I've heard other meetings, all were members of SPARS, and let's fight for the very rural communities, all the real difficulties. And then people tonight won't supporting those smaller communities. I say to everyone sitting in this chamber tonight that represents a rural area such as I do, which has no facilities. Oh, sorry. We have virtually open public lavatories at Walsingham. That's all my community really gets from the district council. But they all run their own pitches. They all run their own village halls. So I say to everyone that represents one of those communities, represent them properly and vote for this amendment. And I'll back up Councillor Vardy's request for a recorded vote on this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. I'm sorry, Councillor Netherway, you can't, the motion has been seconded, so that's the way process has to be followed. I'm sorry you hadn't made your hand clearer earlier. Apologies, I didn't see you. So we go to the vote. So you have the right to reply. If you wish to, so you'll move with the amendment.
I don't take it up, thank you.
No, in which case move then move this substantive relationship. Lucy, councillor Shires, you have the rote of final reply on this,
Oh, okay,
on the amendment.
okay. Didn't realise that extra airtime for me. Apologies, everybody, again. The crocodile tears and the clucking chickens. I'm wondering how many more animal references we can get into the meeting. The ball's in your court. I'm just going to read two things. So, Councillor Dixon, please forgive me if I've misquoted you when you said can play all kinds of hypothetic schemas to avoid the real issue. And I'm just going to add back to you the statement that Councillor Cushing made on the 22nd of June 2023, and that was badly needed funding. That will come back to haunt you many times. We, as a group, have laid out our commitment to the fund should we find ourselves in the financial position where we can reignite it. From where I'm sitting, it's a pause on the fund because we cannot afford the current financial situation in continuing with that. That doesn't mean we're saying, no, we don't want to do it. That means we're saying now we cannot and we are pausing it. Again, there's no clarity of which reserve it will come from, and there's no clarity of what services we would have to cut in order to fund this. And it is only on those options, it is only on those 2 points that I cannot support the amendment. And this is a plea for all future amendments. Please come into the process sooner, because if you come into the process sooner, we can actually put these in. We can actually make space for amendments. I've said consistently at overview and scrutiny and at cabinet, I want to work with everybody. This isn't the administration's North Norfolk. This is everybody who's sitting in this council chamber, and it's every resident. And because of that, I want everybody to come forward at an early stage so we can build a budget that meets all our community's needs. But unfortunately, again, due to the current financial situation, I'm really, really sorry, but I can't accept the amendment. And I genuinely mean that. I'm really sorry.
Thank you, councillor Shires. So we now move to the vote, please. And I'll hand to officers for this.
Thank you. In regard to councillor Holliday's proposed amendment, I'm going to ask whether you vote for, against or abstain. Councillor Adams. Councillor Beattie.
Against.
Councillor Bayes. Councillor Blathwaite.
Against.
Councillor Boyle. Councillor Brown. Councillor Bull. Councillor Buttercofer.
Against.
Councillor Cushing.
For.
Councillor Dixon. Councillor Fisher. Councillor Fitch-Tillett.
For.
Councillor Fitzpatrick. Councillor Fletcher. Councillor Hankins.
Against.
Councillor Heinink.
Against.
Councillor Heinrich.
Against.
Councillor Holliday. Councillor MacDonald.
Against.
Councillor Mancini Boyle. Councillor Netherway. Councillor Penfold. Councillor Porter. Councillor Punchard. Councillor Ringer.
Against.
Councillor Shires. Councillor Sims. Councillor Taylor. Councillor Toy J.
Against.
Councillor Toy K.
Against.
Councillor Vardy. Councillor Varley. Councillor Vickers. Councillor Withington.
Against.
Counting. So I have 14 for and 20 against.
So the amendment is not carried. So we now move to the debate on the budget itself. Who would like to speak, please? Councillor Toy and then Councillor Taylor.
Thank you,
Councillor
Madam
Toy,
Chair.
John.
Yep, thank you, Madam Chair. As has already been said, I'd like to thank officers and cabinet and all members that have been involved with producing this budget. It's been tough and it's been a challenge. Decisions have had to be made, which we've just had to debate some. In terms of the comments made by Councillor Cushing, I remember he came in here with his candidates and said this was going to be the new administration. Clearly, that's not what people wanted. And that's why he's sitting there in opposition still saying that he's offering alternatives, but we don't see them. We don't see those alternatives. He'll sit there now and say we should be joining up IT. When has that suggestion come along in all the other committees that we have in this council? So if they truly want to work collaboratively, then they need to be doing that process throughout the years that they've had the opportunity. We've been told how we should, they built up the reserves and we've used them, and then how we should spend them. We've also talked about the medium term, which Councillor Shires says, you know, I've been in the meetings where she asks, what is it you want? What do we need to do? Let's have that discussion. Yet they'll wait till now and bring an amendment and trying to address it there. So in terms of the budget, I think it's been considerable work that's been done, and I think that we should support this budget, and I will be voting for it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Toy. Councillor Taylor.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chairman. There's several areas of this budget that I could focus my thoughts on, but as I feel I always do try to do, I will bring this back to Stalham. Since my election over 2 years ago now, I do feel I've always tried to further the interests of the fantastic little market town that I live. And clearly, if this budget is any measure of my success, my efforts have fallen on deaf ears. In the capital programme, where we see millions dished out to other market towns across the district, we in Stalham get a token £20,000. If this isn't evidence of the utter disregard that the Liberal Democrats in North Norfolk hold for Stalham, then I don't know what is. The common arguments that the council is asset poor in Stalham are getting tiresome. In my opinion, if you lack something, in this case assets, you work to fix that. In my view, this council has done nothing to fix that issue. It's done nothing to further the interests of the people I represent, and I think that token, £20,000, stands testament to that. I am tired of Stalham not being valued by this council, not being invested in, and not being supported. As many councillors in this room will know, our high street is closed, and only a couple of weeks ago, I asked this administration to make our car park at the top of the high street free parking for the duration of that closure. You know, a move that would have cost. Sorry, that request was refused. Subsequently, I asked a question. You know, for reference, how much income that car park brings this council? In January 2022, that number was £700. If this council cannot give my community circa £700 when our high street is closed, if it allocates a token £20,000 in this budget, it clearly does not care. That is what we are up against. That is what we are fighting. And I know myself and Councillor Bayes will continue to keep up that fight to do what is right by our home.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just to be clear, I will speak on behalf of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee later in the process, so this comment is on my own behalf. This budget is a product of long-term complacency towards the forecast budget gaps in the medium-term financial plan, and past reliance on central government funding to close those gaps and a lack of commitment to solve financial sustainability challenges with innovative service delivery, evolution and efficiency solutions, planned and developed well in advance of the budget gap arrival. The result is a hastily cobbled together list of gap fillers carrying extraordinary delivery risks and reliance on valuable once-only reserves with even bigger gap challenges in the future and little lead time to fill them. Madam Chairman, we have to do better than this. Lastly, the huge list of capital bids needs a lot of work to resolve some strategic conundrums. One example, and I've got nothing against Holt Country Park, but this is an example. Is it to remain a rural natural park in the countryside, or is it to be a developed theme park with lots of urban trappings sitting incongruously in the countryside? There's much to be defined and refined in this list. And it's for those reasons I will not support the capital bids list as it stands. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bayes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to endorse the statement made by my colleague, Councillor Taylor, and add to his comments that once again, Stalham Town, yes, a town, has been overlooked. A town that is part of North Norfolk, serving one of the most deprived areas of our district, supporting a significant numbers of surrounding rural parishes. This town has felt undervalued for some time, and this budget does nothing to change that view.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, thank you. I will try and be as brief as possible. Yeah, you know, we've just seen the major way of helping the sparse rural communities in this district knocked out for, in the nicest possible way, lack of ambition, lack of willingness to find a way, because in the future we'll do something isn't good enough. We all know when it's gone, it's gone. It's a bit like this, the sales. And pick up Councillor Dixon's point on the capital bid, Holt Country Park. I think if we're going to take away the one way that that this council could reach out to all the small communities, all the hamlets, all the small groupings, that's gone. We should really seriously look at the capital bid, and which is centric on larger communities. There's not much point in joining sparse and all the LGAs groupings for rural and coastal areas unless charity begins at home and we actually do something for them, and we've just failed to do it. I can't support the capital bid. You know, I live in a village which gets 300,000 visitors a year, and there's a set of lavatories which they're actually in a list one building, the old wall of the monastic enclosure. But actually, if you look inside, they look as if they were actually built when the monks were still using them. So I can't support the capital bid either, because it needs seriously looked at. And when it comes to next year, I would seriously hope that it's an entirely different set of capital bids that actually pays more than lip service to the fact that this is a rural district with small dispersed communities. So let's do something about it this year, but I won't support this year's.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzpatrick. Was anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Withington.
Thank you. I would like to just make a comment about as Holt Country Park seems to be taking a lot of the attention of various members of the opposition. The capital bids that have been put forward for Holt Country Park, I think the level of financial commitment that is now needed in there is probably reflective of a lot of issues across the whole district, actually, in that we face as an administration a long period of a lack of investment in our assets. And, you know, I look in my own ward in Sheringham on the seafront, the issues that have been faced there, and some of the bids there are a result of the fact that things are literally falling to pieces because they were not maintained for a considerable period. Holt Country Park has two factors, I believe. One of them is that we now have for our staff who I cannot praise that team highly enough. Any organisation with the amount of land and woodland in particular that we have to look after, to have the few in number that they have and manage that successfully, safely, and with, you know, green flag status is quite an achievement. And they deserve to have suitable, warm, dry accommodation to be in, to which from working from. And that's what part of that capital bid is. At the moment, we have a situation which is a severe health and safety risk whenever it rains. So I think that has to be a priority in looking after our staff. And to enable those huge amounts of land that need to be looked after. There is also an issue there in terms of we are having to use diesel generators to provide basic lighting to toilets, etc. in that area, and that has to be addressed. Now, this should have all been addressed many, many years ago, but has been ongoing, as with things on the prom in Sheringham and in other areas of the district where we have many assets who have not been maintained, such as our toilets, and why I can't remember the figure off the top of my head. I think it might be 2 million we've spent on toilets to try and bring those up to standard. So this budget reflects that commitment as well to bringing our assets up to appropriate standards and making sure that our residents have access to those facilities. So to argue that we are just frivolous, I think is misleading, really. It's the politest word.
Councillor Vardy.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just in response to that comment we've just heard about Holt Country Park, I'm a member of this council and my area is Holt and including Holt Country Park. I'm a frequent visitor there. I talk to people as I walk round, and not one person has said to me, we need some electrification, we need £500,000 being spent in here. You can talk about the staff there, and yes, with every sympathy for that, but how many years have they managed without as they are now? Where's the plight? Where has it come from? I'm sorry, I don't accept that.
Thank you. Is anyone else wishing to speak on the budget? Okay, well, I would like to speak on the budget, please. On the market towns, Stalham and Fakenham. Some years ago, just before this administration took over, we set up the Market Town Initiative, and an equal sum of money was given to each of 4 towns across the district. It was an equal sum of money. And those towns were Holt, Stalham, Fakenham and North Walsham. Those communities were asked to use that as seed fund money to develop their towns. Unfortunately, not every town was as successful in achieving the potential with that money. When we took over this council, there was a 2.4 million deficit. So don't tell me that you just started coming up with deficits now. We had to fill that gap. And just to be clear, we have topped up the Sustainables Communities Fund from within our budgets ourselves to keep it going for as long as possible. So it hasn't just been the fat coming back from the other businesses. Regarding shared services, there are people in this chamber who will remember we did go to try to do shared services. Unfortunately, for reasons that are still unfathomable to me, they didn't happen. Thank you. Did anybody else wish to speak on the budget? Councillor Cushing.
Yeah, I just want to comment. This is the second time, Madam Chairman. Last time I held my fire, but the point of this is you're the chairman of this meeting. When you get elected as chairman, the whole principle of that is that you are become at that point above party. It may not be, I'm sure, in the constitution that it's what you're meant to be doing, but it's certainly in the spirit of what the chairman of any council should be. My view is if you want to make a contribution to the debate, then you step aside and you let the deputy chairman chair the debate and you participate as a member. It really is, it's almost outrageous doing that, I have to say. It makes all of us who are on this side of the fence, who are the opposition, feel uncomfortable that this debate is not being chaired fairly.
Point of order. Sorry, what relevance does that have in standing orders? Where does that, the councillor appeared to raise a point of order, but didn't seem to reference anything.
So I was raising a council point of order, saying, making a comment, Councillor Adam, which is a fair comment to be made, certainly felt by this side of the chain.
Not a factual matter then.
Chairman of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Overview and Scrutiny Committee first considered this budget on the 24th of January as a draft, as a pre-scrutiny item of business, focusing mostly on the list of income and saving proposals and the use of reserves to help fill the £1.5 million gap. And as for the public consultation of some sort in the list and how that would be conducted. So we were concerned about how that public consultation would take place. It also considered the need for contingency funding and the need to start the budget planning process much earlier in the year. And it made the following two recommendations. The council's budget monitoring must include the expected levels of income and savings expected as a key means of closing the budget gap. The second recommendation was that a timetable of the key events of the 24-25 budget is developed across the year so that progress and appropriate consultation can be monitored. So, Madam Chairman, that was the committee's view and expression of concern that this budget needs a closer eye, and it will be the intention of this committee of Overview and Scrutiny to keep that closer eye, because it's one thing for us to debate this, but it's quite another to deliver the budget across the year. The Overview and Scrutiny next considered this budget on the 14th of February after it had been through Cabinet. And it focused mostly on the changes made since the 24th of January, naturally so. One such change was the £250,000 of savings yet to be identified. And because of confidentiality, exploration of that list required the meeting to be held in closed session for a significant period of time. And it is fair to say that we were successful in exploring what that list contained in generic terms without being specific, and I won't go any further on that tonight. So, and it made the following recommendation, well, two recommendations. That the Overview and Scrutiny Committee considered the list of proposed savings, the use of reserves, and the setting of a savings target, and made no additional recommendations to full council on the combination to include in the budget for 24-25 for the full council to consider when it meets on the 21st of February. To set a balanced budget for 24-25, subject to noting that due to an additional 305,000 being received from the government in its final local government finance settlement for 24-25. The additional use of reserves to balance the budget for 24-25 would now be 111,000 rather than the 416,000. The second recommendation was the Overview and Scrutiny Committee reviews the proposed capital programme and new capital bids, but made no changes to the list set out in the report, and that further work would be undertaken by the committee on what the council's medium-term financial strategy should look like in the future. And I take note of Councillor Shire's reference to that in the past, but I have to say that that is the position of the committee, and that will produce an outline of what we will be looking for in terms of that strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Do we have anyone else wishing to speak on?
Unless there's anyone else.
I'm just checking whether there's anyone else wishing to speak. No? Then Councillor Adams.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I just wanted to come back to Stalham, and certainly when a project is scoped in future, as we've discussed, I think there's still work to do on the outcomes of the High Street Task Force, and we will look to develop a project for Stalham, but in terms of the provision of free parking, we really cannot foot the bills for the county council, who've obviously, rightly so, been maintaining the pavements, but where that has an impact, we shouldn't be expected to pick it up. In respect of Whole Country Park, I thought that was all quite incoherent, really, in terms of, I think I heard urban theme park, and that can be really further away from the truth. There's a diesel generator there that is getting to the end of its serviceable life, and obviously it has an impact on our ability to reach net zero as well. And what we've tried to do here is prioritize our capital bids in terms of the impact pound for pound, in terms of, well, pound for ton, really, if you like, in terms of carbon reduction. And that particularly is one thing we would want to sort out. The workshop will support greater use of the Whole Country Park facilities in terms of school visits and the ability to repair tools. And the shed realistically is very much at the end of its serviceable life as well. And I just wanted to note, there's no amendments to the capital budget here, and that's been noted, and it was noted as well by the ONS chairman just a minute ago. Touching back on some of what the opposition leaders said, the corporate plan is certainly on target. In fact, the only significant issue is, in fact, the government delay to the Levelling Up Act, and you'll hear that at the next Overview and Scrutiny Committee when the update and progress report goes to relevant committee. Certainly nobody has, I believe you said, rushed around in panic about the budget. I understand this discussion went quite calmly to the ONS committee three occasions. Was that correct? 3 occasions, and I don't believe there were any significant outcomes or amendments to the budget overall. And I know the collector's cabin was mentioned, and I'm delighted that project has actually now been completed, and it was empty for some considerable time into the previous administration, and we filled it. That's now delivering revenue for the council. So rest assured, Christopher, that no longer will be a feature of future capital budgets. As Sarah mentioned, as the chair mentioned, when the administration started, we were faced with a £2.4 million black hole, which we dealt with. And now the context is very different in terms of £600,000 of additional temporary accommodation costs, 550,000 due to the delays with the government passing the Levelling Up Bill, and the rest, of course, inflation. The context is very different 2 years ago, but we are still in a position where we do not have external debts. We're one of the precious few councils, really, that are in that position, and I think we can all say we've contributed to that position politically, of course, but it is the case. It's something we've tried to carefully preserve, and of course, it could have been an option to borrow our way through that, but that's not without its risks. And in terms of the use of reserves, I will just point out the local government minister, Simon Hall, did say councils should be drawing on reserves. It's been said quite a bit about it during this debate about the use of reserves, and but the fact is we have adequate reserves to deal with this, and they are at the recommended level. So I also wanted to touch on the attack complacency, and I think if it's the case we're complacent, every council across the country must have been complacent, because everyone is in this situation in terms of the homelessness impacts. There are councils around the country that 49p of every pound they collect in council tax is now going on homelessness. We're not obviously in that situation, but it's really bitten us as well. And face the situation. It's the reality, and it's not one that we or any of you or any staff members here have caused. The councils across the country have therefore been under relentless financial pressure, and as you've seen, more and more have been declaring Section 114 notices, and otherwise known as bankruptcy. So I think for years, really, government support has been slashed now, and we're now seeing that huge impact again due to the inflation and housing crisis. And because of this, councils of every political leadership have faced crisis, certainly ourselves with the housing crisis and pressures. And really, there's no political points to score here. We as a sector need to be speaking with the same voice on this issue. Few, if any, councils are not raising rates. I think I'm right in saying all of the county councils, including all the Conservative county councils, are raising council taxes. I might be right in saying there are just 3 councils of any political leadership that are looking at not raising council tax. That really is such a tiny minority. But again, I would use this opportunity to repeat our call for government to properly fund local government. Stop infantilizing this sector as has happened under this government, because the results have been devastating, and realize how essential we are to service provision, to housing, and to every other element, economic development, coastal services, and coastal defences, etc. This relationship does need to be reset now, and whatever the outcome of that general election, because that shortfall nationally for local government finances is £5.8 billion. It's unbelievable that it's got that bad now. So I will just finish by saying thank you to everyone again that's contributed to the budget process, and repeat that I've seconded the budget for acceptance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Councillor Shires.
Thank you. And I just want to thank everybody for their part in this evening's debate. And I genuinely mean that. I'm grateful for everybody's input. Members of the council, as we stand on the precipice of a new financial year, we do so with a budget that has the ultimate goal of preserving the high quality services that our residents rely on, all while maintaining financial responsibility. The achievements I've celebrated today, the balanced budget amidst the tumultuous economic landscape, are a testament to the collective dedication and hard work of everybody involved. In this budget, we have continued to make significant investments in North Norfolk's future. Yet we also face the stark reality of external challenges beyond our control, from the ongoing war in Ukraine to the impacts of austerity and the uncertainties of a post-pandemic world. These challenges have tested our resilience and determination, but they have not deterred us from our commitment to serve our residents with integrity and compassion. As we move forward, united in our purpose, I'm heartened by the spirit of collaboration that has defined our budget setting process. Together, we have laid the foundation for a stronger, more accountable council. Looking ahead, we must remain vigilant and proactive in addressing the looming uncertainties in our financial landscape. The road ahead may be challenging with forecasts of deficits and impending reforms, but I am confident in our ability to navigate these challenges with prudence and foresight. To our dedicated officers, cabinet colleagues, and every member of this council, I truly extend my deepest gratitude. Your unwavering commitment to the well-being of our community, as demonstrated through your hard work and dedication, is truly commendable. We are a council committed to our residents, driven by a shared vision of prosperity and resilience. And as we embark on this new financial year, let us do so with unity, determination, and a steadfast commitment in serving the best interests of all those we are privileged to represent. And again, Madam Chair, I again propose this as the budget for North Norfolk.
Thank you, councillor. We now then move to the vote, which will obviously be taken. The recorded vote.
Thank you. So with reference to page 137 of the papers, this is the first of two votes and proposing to take the recorded vote en bloc in regard to recommendations 1 to 9. Chair, are you happy to start?
Councillor Cushing.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. In terms of that, we'd like to request that there is some splitting of the voting. So we are happy to take on block 1, 2, 3, 6, 8, and 9 of the first block as one go, and of the second block 10 and 11B as one block. The other ones we would like a separate vote on, please. So that's separate vote on 4, 5, 7, and 11A.
Yeah, thank you. In that case,
just 2 seconds.
In that case, for this first or for part 1 of the budget, I'm going to call for 2 recorded votes. The first recorded vote is in regard to the main budget items 1, 2, 3, 6, 8, and 9 only.
Sorry, excuse me, just 1 second. Councillor Dixon wishes to speak.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It's just to clarify in 8, the reserve fund figure of 2.1 million is quoted, but I'm aware that 2.4 million was quoted in the very recent overview and scrutiny meeting last week. So I'm just wondering which figure is right.
Thank you. Just 1 moment, please. We'll confirm that for you.
Apologies, councillor Dixon, I don't recall saying that the sort of optimum level would be 2.4.
If it's any help, Officer Stankley, it's in the draft minutes of overview and scrutiny. So I believe that would have been transcribed from the recording. So that's how the figure, I think, was arrived at.
I can confirm though that it is 2.1 is my recommended level of the optimum level of reserves that we retain in the general fund.
I think it will be sufficient for our needs tonight if you're able to confirm that the 2.1 figure is correct.
Yes, it is correct, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to pass back to the monitoring officer to check on the recorded votes to make sure we've got your requirements correct, Councillor Cushing.
So I'm going to do essentially 4 different recorded votes on the budget. And for the budget part 1, the first recorded vote will be for items 1, 2, 3, 6, 8, and 9. And the second recorded vote for part 1 will be for items 4, 5, and 7. That's for the second
Just check,
part.
excuse me, can I just check, because we have you should just say separate votes for 4, 5, and 7. Yeah, thank you.
sorry, councillor Cushing, do you want individual votes for 4, 5 and 7 or on block 4, 5 and 7 separately?
Sorry. We probably could do 4 and 7 as 1 and 5 separately.
Sorry, was that 4 and 7
That could be
together?
done as one block, and 5, number 5 could be separate.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so for the first recorded vote, just so everyone is aware, that's for items 1, 2, 3, 6, 8 and 9. I'm going to ask you if you vote for, against or abstain. Councillor Adams.
For.
Councillor Beatty.
For.
Councillor Bayes. Councillor Blathwaite. For. Councillor Boyle. Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Bull. Councillor Buttercover.
For.
Councillor Cushing.
For.
Councillor Dixon.
For.
Councillor Fisher.
For.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett. Councillor Fitzpatrick. Councillor Fletcher. Councillor Hankins.
For.
Councillor Heinink.
For.
Councillor Heinrich.
For.
Councillor Holiday. Councillor MacDonald.
For.
Councillor Mancini Boyle. Councillor Netherway. Councillor Penfold. Councillor Porter. Councillor Punchard. Councillor Ringer.
For.
Councillor Shires. Councillor Sims. Councillor Taylor. Councillor Toy J.
For.
Councillor Toy K. 4. Councillor Vardy. Councillor Varley. Councillor Vickers. Councillor Withington. 4. 32 for and 2 against.
Thank you. So those are carried. Now we move on to the next recorded vote.
Thank you. So the next recorded vote is for items 4 and 7. I will ask you if you vote for, against or abstain. Councillor Adams. Councillor Beatty.
For.
Councillor Bayes. Councillor Blathwaite.
For.
Councillor Boyle. Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Bull. Councillor Buttercover.
For.
Councillor Cushing. Councillor Dixon. Councillor Fisher. Councillor Fitch-Tillett. Councillor Fitzpatrick. Councillor Fletcher. Councillor Hankins.
For.
Councillor Heinink.
For.
Councillor Heinrich.
For.
Councillor Holiday. MacDonald.
For.
Councillor Mancini Boyle. Councillor Netherway. Councillor Penfold. Councillor Porter. Councillor Punchard. Councillor Ringer.
For.
Councillor Shires. Councillor Sims. Councillor Taylor. Councillor Toy J.
For.
Councillor Toy K. 4. Councillor Vardy. Councillor Varley. Councillor Vickers. And Councillor Withington. 4. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 10, 11, 12, 13, 16, 17, 18. So that's 21 for, 2 against and 11 abstentions.
Thank you. So that part is carried. We move to the third vote.
So this is for item 5 in part 1. I'll ask if you vote for, against or abstain. Councillor Adams. Councillor Beatty.
For.
Councillor Bayes.
Okay.
Councillor Blathwaite. Councillor Boyle. Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Bull. Councillor Buttercofer.
For.
Councillor Cushing.
Against.
Councillor Dixon. Councillor Fisher. Councillor Fitch-Tillett.
Against.
Councillor Fitzpatrick. Councillor Fletcher. Councillor Hankins.
For.
Councillor Heinink.
For.
Councillor Heinrich.
For.
Councillor Holiday. Councillor MacDonald.
For.
Councillor Mancini Boyle. Councillor Netherway. Councillor Penfold. Councillor Porter. Councillor Punchard. Councillor Ringer.
For.
Councillor Shires. Councillor Sims. Councillor Taylor. Councillor Toy-J.
For.
Councillor Toy-K. For. Councillor Vardy. Councillor Varley.
For.
Councillor Vickers. Councillor Withington.
For.
21 for and 13 against.
So again, that part of the budget is carried. Thank you. We now move to part 2, the council tax setting. Could I ask the section 151 officer, please, to outline the different elements of the council tax recommendations before handing over to Councillor Shires?
The council tax calculation and the elements that comprise it are on page 177 of your pack at Appendix F. The table that is laid out on that page does set out the sets out the calculation and says which section of the Act that it needs to comply with. I thought that I would actually explain to you each element in layman's terms rather than repeating the sections of the Act, etc., so that it hopefully is more understandable to you as we go through each line. So line A, which is £61,278,419, that is the total of expenditure that we will spend in 24-25. Line B, £51,153.283 is the total amounts of income that we expect to receive in 24-25. Line C is the difference between our expenditure of 61 million and our income of 51 million. This gives us a total net expenditure of £10,125,136. And that is the amount that we have to fund from council tax payments for the year 24-25. D is the amount that we have to fund at line C divided by the council tax base, which is the is recorded in paragraph 5.5a above as 41,501.7 bandy property equivalents, and that includes the parish element. So line E is the total of the parish precepts that have been requested of £3,129,194. And then to arrive at our council tax for North Norfolk District Council per band D property, we take line E and divide it by the tax base of £41,501.70, and that gives us £75, I think, and 10 pence, I think. I can't remember off the top of my head, but that is the difference between D and F, and that gives us our council tax figure for the year for 2024-5. So that is doesn't include the parish precepts, and it is just purely the council tax that we wish to charge for 2024-5. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Shires.
I don't think I need to add anything more. Thank you, Officer Stankley, for your very, very easy to understand explanation. And I think adding any more to that would just merely confuse everybody. So I'll hand back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Would anybody like to speak on this item? No? Do we have a seconder, please? Councillor Adams. In which case, it having been duly proposed and seconded, are we going to do both together?
I think they're
Are we happy to?
I think they're separated.
Yes, so as I requested earlier, if we could vote on block for 10 and 11B and separately for 11A, please.
So we're talking about 3 votes then, Councillor Cushing.
No,
2 votes, 10 and 11B on block together and 11A separately.
Separately. Okay,
2
thank
votes.
you.
Okay, so with regard to items 10 and 11B, I'm going to ask if you vote for, against or abstain. Councillor Adams. Councillor Beattie.
For.
Councillor Bayes.
For.
Councillor Blathwaite.
For.
Councillor Boyle. Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Bull.
For.
Councillor Petakova.
For.
Councillor Cushing.
For.
Councillor Dixon.
For.
Councillor Fisher. Councillor Fitch-Tillett.
For.
Councillor Fitzpatrick. Councillor Fletcher. Councillor Hankins. Councillor Heinink.
For.
Councillor Heinrich.
For.
Councillor Holiday. Councillor MacDonald.
For.
Councillor Mancini Boyle. Councillor Netherway. Councillor Penfold. Councillor Porter. Councillor Punchard. Councillor Ringer.
For.
Councillor Shires. Councillor Sims. Councillor Taylor. Councillor Toyjay. Councillor Toyke. For. Councillor Vardy. Councillor Varley. Councillor Vickers. Councillor Withington. For. It's unanimous.
Thank you. That's passed. We now move to the second vote.
Thank you. This is in regards to item 11A only. I'll ask if you vote for, against or abstain. Councillor Adams. Councillor Beattie.
For.
Councillor Bayes. Councillor Blathwaite.
For.
Councillor Boyle. Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Bull. Councillor Petakova.
For.
Councillor Cushing.
Against.
Councillor Dixon.
Against.
Councillor Fisher.
For.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett.
Again.
Councillor Fitzpatrick. Councillor Fletcher. Councillor Hankins. Councillor Heinink.
For.
Councillor Heinrich.
For.
Councillor Holiday. Councillor MacDonald.
For.
Councillor Mancini Boyle.
Against.
Councillor Netherway.
Against.
Councillor Penfold. Councillor Porter.
Against.
Councillor Punchard.
Against.
Councillor Ringer.
For.
Councillor Shires.
For.
Councillor Sims.
For.
Councillor Taylor.
Against.
Councillor Toyjay.
For.
Councillor Toyke. For. Councillor Vardy.
Against.
Councillor Varley. Councillor Vickers. Councillor Withington. For. That's 21 for, 13 against.
Thank you. So that item is passed. Thank you. So we now move on to portfolio holder reports. Can I just remind members that we have a 9 o'clock guillotine on this meeting? So please keep your questions and answers succinct. Thank you. So, has everyone read the reports, and does anyone have any questions on the reports, please? Councillor Taylor? Councillor Boyle? Sorry, I thought Councillor Taylor, you were going to start.
Sorry, Madam Chair. I'm waiting for you to. Sorry, I was waiting for you to say my names. I do apologise.
You were going to start. Thank you.
A very quick and easy one. Councillor Brown, can you confirm to me that North Norfolk District Council collects fees for giving out pre-application advice, please?
When I last, thank you for your question, Councillor Taylor. I think when I last looked at what we do in our successful planning department, I believe that we do collect fees for pre-application advice, and we have every intent of doing so moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Boyle?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a question for Councillor Ringer. Could you give us the latest update on the food waste collections? We've been asked a few questions recently. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As you know, central government have announced that all local authorities will have to collect food waste from the end of March 2026, and that they at the time announced they would be providing us with funding, New Burdens funding for acquiring the food caddies and the vehicles that we would require to implement that service. Unfortunately, the offer that came back from DEFRA is probably about half what it will actually cost for the vehicles and the food caddies that we would require. They haven't allocated us any funding at all for communal waste collection bins, of which we have about 5,000 properties, nor is there any allocation for depots that we may require for the vehicles or any transfer stations for it. Unfortunately, that isn't particularly helpful when it comes to planning going forward. And we are in conversations with DEFRA now going forward, providing evidence for the fact that they're essentially not offering us enough. I know through the District Council network that we are not alone in this, and the vast majority of councils will be doing the same. It is unfortunate because we'd like to get on with it and do it straight away. But it's interesting, you know, in the context of a budget meeting as well, that these are the kinds of things which do not help us in setting budgets for the future when the government's promise of funding falls far short.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mancini Boyle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excuse me. My question is to the portfolio holder for climate change and net zero, Councillor Varley. In the reserve statements on page 172, we are transferring £500,000 per annum into reserves to achieve net zero. Given that on page 173 of the capital programme, the cost of LED light replacements in the Cromer office alone is almost £92,000, are we misleading our members and residents with an unrealistic pledge? And where are the business cases for longer necessary projects? Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Mancini Boyle. I've rather missed answering your question, so it's good to have a question from you. Thank you. You are absolutely right. This administration is committed to our net zero targets. We have got a £500,000 budget for those relatable projects, those policies, and we will be coming up with business cases. It's absolutely right that we go through those processes, and we have up to date used a proportion of the 500k for projects, but we need to come up with a substantial project going forwards, which will reduce carbon emissions, but also reduce energy costs as well. and rightly put, we have a fantastic capital projects list going forwards, which encompasses both of those aspects, notably for the North Walsham swimming pool. We've allocated £200,000 for solar rays on the roof there. So that will allow that swimming centre to have sustainable green energy and also reduce the costs going forwards. But there will be a surplus at some point, and then that will be fed back into the grid. But it has to come from, like I say, a really robust business case, and that is the process this administration is going through. But I think I do just want to add on that point of the 500k. We can also use that to lever additional external funding, and that is something we have already done to date. I can't go through the details now. I'm sure you'll understand that, Councillor Mancini Boyle, but we have used a small proportion of the 500k for a prominent asset in the district, and we've managed to then lever around £75,000 of external funding. So that's a fantastic initiative, and I want to thank officers who have been working on that application. So yeah, like I say, rambling on a little, but that 500k ensures that we are doing right by North Norfolk, ensuring that we get to our net zero targets by 2030. Thank you.
Yep.
First of all, I think that's totally unrealistic. £500,000, and you've got 6 years. I mean, how is this going to cost to do this place or Chroma Pier? I don't know where you're getting the money from. It's going to cost an absolute fortune. You're not telling me where the money's coming from. £500,000 per year for another 6 years is not going to decarbonise the whole of North Norfolk. I'm sorry, if you believe that, then you must keep going on Dragon's Den. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, it's for a follow-up. It's for a follow-up question, not a statement.
Yes, and about 9 Norwich Street. So with your permission, as Councillor Brown has already declared a pecuniary interest, I'll address my question to Councillor Adams directly. Thank you. So you've heard this evening 2 members of the public from Fakenham to speak very passionately about the impact and blight that 9 Norwich Street is having on the whole centre of Fakenham town. I can't improve on their heartfelt speeches, and I know that many other residents stand behind them in support, and they have my complete support. So I know it's a complex case, but it's dragged on for far too long now. So please, can I ask you to stop procrastinating, make a decision, and at least take a position by the end of this financial year? And to be crystal clear, that means by the end of March 2024. Thank you.
Sorry, can I clarify what decision Councillor Vickers is referring to?
I would like you to take a position on 9 Norwich Street. You promised me one other time before.
So we have taken a position on 9 Norwich Street in that we are trying to bring it back into reuse. But as we spoke earlier, we do not own the property, and therefore we have to work with the landowner or the primary landowner, I should say, the freehold owner, to secure the reuse of that property. I'm very happy to secure a meeting for those members of the public who rightfully, came to speak to us this evening. I understand the level of concerns. We do have other examples of such properties in the district, but as I say, this one remains a priority. We were hopeful things were moving ahead in a very positive direction. It slowed down a little bit, I should say, but that said, we're still in contact with that person and negotiation with them on the future. We will be seeking with their consent to carry out some improvement works to the frontage of the building shortly. But I think what you're asking us to do is reach an outcome, a reuse of that building within a set timescale. And no one would be able, no matter who was sat here, would be able to promise that to you because of the process. I think you might be referring to compulsory purchase. It just doesn't work like that. You don't go from A to Z in that sort of way. You've got to be able to demonstrate that you've done all of the work that you have. There might be other ways we can resolve this in terms of a joint venture, in terms of purchasing. The building is, of course, listed as well. So there's lots of obligations there for us if we were entering into such any sort of such agreement, really. But it is, as I say, our priority to secure the reuse of the building in future. I'm confident we can do that, but it is very difficult to secure the intent, I suppose, of the landowner to do so. So they've got to work with us, and we'll do everything we can in our powers to ensure it happens.
So that was a very long-winded answer, but very short on transparency from you. You say there's work to be done. Just do
I'm
it.
not happy saying that I'm hiding anything, and I do take issue with that. I'm quite happy to have a further discussion out of the room, but Councillor Vickers, you have been briefed on this by officers. You do know everything that's happening. So you know, if there's any factual question you wish to ask me, you may do so. But we've already demonstrated a position on this very clearly. We want to bring it back into use, but it is not our property.
Thank you. Councillor Beattie.
Just a very quick one for Councillor Adams. I wondered if he's got any further information regarding the Holt Banking Hub.
Yes, absolutely. Following, delighted, we're absolutely delighted about the news for the nomination that Holt has received to have a banking hub. And we've seen how these work in other areas of the country. And sorry, point of order, it's just meant to be one person speaking. Okay. We've recently, for instance, observed the banking hub in Acton, West Ealing, London, and I'm convinced that if a bank hub was to open here in the district tomorrow, it would be busier. That's because of the range of businesses, the small businesses we have, the demographic, and just the general need. So I think we've really been able to demonstrate well that there's a need for bank hubs in our district. But what's next, I think, was your question, and that's offering help to Cash Access UK to secure a location. It's potentially help through the planning process to incentivize that to happen sooner than later. But we will obviously continue that work. And of course, it doesn't end with Holt, because we need to consider what happens in our other towns as well, as we will lose the remaining bank branches. And whilst there are less than 10 of these currently, the bank hubs will be the provision that eventually replaces them, not just offering cash, but the range of other banking services that people require. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bayes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Following on from Councillor Taylor's, Councillor Brown, I've been contacted by a resident of Stalham who has evidence through a Freedom of Information request that the developer on two major applications on Yarmouth Road in Stalham received formal written advice from the planning department, but did not pay a fee for this advice as laid out in the council's own charges, calculated in excess of £11,000 by the resident. Could Councillor Brown provide the council with clarity and transparency of this extremely concerning accusation, and agree to meet myself and Councillor Taylor, discuss the evidence and provide the residents that the resident has provided through Freedom of Information?
Thank you, Councillor Bayes. I have to confess that I don't have detailed information to enable me to respond to your question this evening. Therefore, I'm quite happy to offer a written reply within 7 days, which I believe is the time scale normally applied to written responses to you. And if that isn't a response that resolves your query, then I am quite happy to meet with both yourself and Councillor Taylor. I hope that deals with your question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Toy.
Just confirm we're okay for time, Madam Chair? Just,
Yes, we are.
Thank you.
It's in fact 9:30.
okay, thank you, Madam Chair. So yes, it's a quick question for Councillor Withington. I noticed in your report there that we've got the Fakenham Leisure and Sports Hub project has started. Knowing that these reports are written sometime before they're actually published and therefore and then a further week old, could you give us any further update on that to see if we've moved this project on, this important project for Fakenham? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Toy, for your question. Yes, you're quite right. Obviously, our portfolio reports, etc., go in quite some time before meetings. So there's been lots of work going on with it internal to the organisation. And we're coming up to, so there's been several design meetings with architects and a number of stakeholders groups looking at evaluating the plans and how they would work in principle and how the leisure centre would operate. Importantly, officers have visited a leisure facility in Leicestershire that's undergone a similar project. So basically bolting on a wet facility to a dry leisure facility onto the front of it, which is what we're trying to do at Fakenham. And they came back with some quite interesting solutions and issues that were raised as well. So that learning is being fed back in and discussed with the design team as well. And then we're coming up to the stage now where we're going to be having pre-tender contract engagement workshops. Try saying that on a gin. Which is obviously about moving the procurement process on, but in particular, it's trying to ensure local engagement. So we provide the opportunity for local economic benefit as well. So there's lots going on with that project and it is moving forward. It has to move forward at pace because obviously due to the DLUP funding, we have a March 26th deadline. So it is moving on and it will be, I am confident it will be a great facility for Fakenham.
Thank you, Councillor Withington. Councillor Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, my ward adjoins Fakenham, so lots of the residents use the excellent facilities, particularly in Market Day, historic market. There's a vibrant bistro scene, particularly at the moment, which is unconscionably warm. People are actually sitting outside at the moment, both the Crown and the Red Lion. And the Red Lion, they get a perfect view up Norwich Street. And for the past 4 years, as the rest of the town has moved around and updated itself, we've had the scaffold we've talked about. Now, I appreciate very much the undertaking made by Councillor Adams earlier, particularly following the address from the 2 local residents who I think put the case off very well. And something's being done, that's great. But will he undertake that if nothing's done in the near future, that somewhere he will find the funds to either serve notice to do the work in default and the owners, or look at compulsory purchase, because it's been 4 years and 4 years is 4 years too long.
So we have not missed out anything with this process. We've done absolutely everything we can up to now, and there's been no slacking, there's been no procrastination. I've heard those words, and it's all actually very insulting, I think, to the officers who've been involved in this. So I just wanted to make that very clear. In terms of a compulsory purchase process, you cannot go from A to Z. You need to prove that you've done the work that we are doing now in terms of engaging with the landowner, It is not without significant financial risk. It is not without legal risk. And I think many assume that you simply take control of the building, but don't realise you have to pay compensation. You have to pay for the building itself. So it is certainly not as simple as that. And it's certainly not as simple as going in and doing the work, serving notice. Bear in mind, we've already done that in terms of securing the building. We've talked about the crack in the building's frontage this evening, and we have made the building structurally sound, from at least from the point of view of not getting any worse. But it is obviously our ambition. But we can't speak here for the landowner, for the freehold owner, and them and other landowners across the district who have empty, vacant or derelict properties. That makes this process very difficult, I think, to resolve. I think what you could do is perhaps speak to your MP, lobby for additional powers for councils to actually deal with this situation quicker, because there's no guarantees if we went through that process that we would get anywhere. So as I say, we're working with the landowner. We're trying to secure the property's future, and very happy to secure members of the public. That meeting that we spoke of, if local members require any additional information, then please do approach officers. You know who they are. I believe members have done that already and are fully informed of the situation.
Thank you. Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I've got a question for Councillor Ringer. I understand we've got a new waste collection regime to look forward to in the coming months, and just wondered if he could explain what's happening there and whether we'll get the chance to hear more about it.
Thank you very much for the question. Yes, we certainly have got it to look forward to, as you put it. Officers and I have been meeting just this afternoon, actually, and we're been confirming a date for a all members briefing, which we're looking to hold on the 13th of March. That'll be in here at 6 p.m, all being well. We hope to have representatives from Serco here, and obviously officers and myself. We're looking to put together an information pack for each ward member, which will give them an indication of the level of change in their patch, which will give, hopefully help them to answer any resident questions as well. The first comms will be going out in early March, informing residents of any change of day. Not everybody will get a change. But the point is, we want everybody, all councillors, to be as informed as possible. The waste collections is, our most visible service. So I would encourage every single member to be along to that, collect the information that you can, so that you're in the best possible position to answer any resident queries. So that's my challenge for everybody, to turn up on that day. And I understand there may be refreshments. So, and you'll probably need a drink afterwards. I will. I'll honour it.
There seems to be a debate about whether Councillor Fletcher, you wish to speak or not. Ah, lovely, thank you. Anybody else wishing to ask a question? Sorry, Councillor Vickers, you've already had one question. Anybody else who hasn't had a question wishing to ask a question? Right. In which case, it takes us to the exclusion of press and public, which I don't believe we have any left. So thank you very much indeed for everyone for your time this evening.